Are you an incremental collapsitarian? If not, you probably should be. Now I get this is a little bit of an in-the-weeds kind of a subject that goes back to the one true libertarianism kind of thing, so most of you are probably going to tune out, but I don't care. I want to speak my mind anyway. So this is how the journey goes, right? At some point you figure out in your life, either for practical economic reasons or just moral reasons, you think that being free is a good thing. Liberty is great, that I should be able to do what I want as long as I'm not hurting you, and to stop me from doing that is either ineffective or immoral. Probably those two things, to be honest. So that's what makes people kind of new left, constitutional conservative, all the way to libertarian to anarchist to whatever. That's where it starts. At some point you realize that the biggest factor preventing people from just living free is directly government, or it's things that government enables, such as mega corporations and monopolies and things like that, that have special protections from the government to do their nefarious things, or the government squashes their competition for them, whether intentional or otherwise. So at some point you realize, hey, government sucks. And that's a very non-controversial opinion for like 70% of the population, I guess. And then at some point you start to think, okay, we need to start making government smaller. We need to restrain these powers. Oh, the Constitution does this and all that kind of stuff. At some point, the more time you spend in this whole system, the more you realize the system is completely terrible. You need a radical overhaul of the system. And so then you say, well, how am I going to fix it? Well, let's push for these reforms. Let's do that. Let's start a campaign. Let's get Ron Paul elected. Oh, Rand Paul, he's good too. Let's get those people elected. Oh, vote libertarian, all that kind of stuff. Or even vote Bernie, vote Tulsi, whoever, just to get some of the problems rooted out. Then at some point you realize, oh, it didn't work. They didn't get in office, and the system is hopelessly rigged against them. And then all the people that did have campaign promises, it didn't work. And eventually, you kind of hit this, well, the system is terrible. We need to just get away from the system. The whole system sucks. And then you get into kind of semi-anarchist territory, where you're like, I don't believe government should exist at all. Everything they try to do sucks, and everything I try to do within the system to make it go away or get smaller, it fights back. It wants to survive. The system does not want to get smaller, and it will fight you tooth and nail for it. Then you hit a crossroads, right? You're either really depressed because everything sucks, the government's here to stay, they do all the evil, and just what point is it anymore? Why don't I just give up? Why I'm just going to go with my family into the woods, and we're going to live out the rest of our days and try to take some people with us and stockpile some ammo in case we need to fend off some feds at some point. But basically, it's all lost cause. We're just going to be sad and depressed. And there's the other way, where you change your avatar to like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker and start posting memes about that stuff, where you, instead of being sad and depressed, you become gleeful about it. You become a collapsitarian, where you just say, hey, the system sucks, I can't wait for it to go away, and you start to just enjoy every little bit of excess and terribleness that the system displays, knowing it's eroding people's confidence in it, knowing the whole thing's going to implode eventually, and then the thing that you hate so much is going away, and you start to enjoy the actual ride of watching the old system sort of crumble to the ground. So you can go to those two kind of ways. You either think the system is terrible and it's kind of here to stay, and you're really sad, or you think the system is terrible and you want to see it collapse, or you see it collapse in this way. And both kind of represent sort of the end of the road of the political journey in people's minds once they start with this basic thought of, hey, I want more freedom. And they're logically and intellectually consistent and honest, and it just takes them there. Usually people end there. But wait, there's more. There's something else you can do as a next step, where for a long time people working in the system who get a little bit depressed that they can't just like pass the big reforms they want become incrementalists, where they just say, well, I want to do things bit by bit to make the system better. Like, what if I can just fight tooth and nail and get the sales tax reduced from 8.5% to 8.3% or 8%. And then, wow, all of a sudden that helps a lot of people. It's a little bit, it's okay. Or like, what happens if I limit defense spending by this much, and maybe I can just incrementally ratchet away and get some freedoms over time. And let me tell you, in most places, after a lifetime of work in this, that gets really depressing. You don't really get very far. You get somewhere, and I'm very happy for the people that do that. But then you get to the collapsitarian idea where it just destroys the system. It sucks. Get rid of it. And that is equally disappointing, because if you're waiting for a big splashy collapse, those things come once in a lifetime, once in a generation maybe. And in whatever country you live in, maybe not even. Maybe, very rarely. And if you're just hoping for that stuff, eventually that big old Joker smile is going to go down. So where I've kind of reached at the end of the road here is incremental collapsitarianism, meaning I think the old system sucks and it needs to go away, and let's just make it happen bit by bit, not all at once, not a big thing. How can we erode trust in the government here? How can we take some of our life away from the system of government and put it in a non-governmental system here? Over time, you can rescue yourself and your friends and your family and stuff from entire iron grip clutches of the state. But also you can just reduce the power and effectiveness of that state and bring it closer to collapse. This could come from anything from publicly mocking and talking about how silly the system is, and talk about how silly the school system is, and talk about how silly bombing people in other countries is, and just doing whatever you can to get into people's minds to not really trust the system. It can be that. It can be filling up the potholes in your local town because the government sucks at maintaining the roads, and then, publicly sharing stuff about that. Or if Domino's Pizza does it, they did, and share that around and say, we don't even need government for the roads, let's just have Domino's do it. And okay, there we go. You start to have things done outside of the government, but also you start to make people think less about that you need government for things. Oh yay, print more money, I don't care, I have all mine in gold and crypto. There you go. That's another thing where, you don't need that. Oh, I only do peer-to-peer transactions between, people I know. I don't do any of this whole on-the-books stuff. And there you go, that whole agorist route. Bit by bit, you start ratcheting away and getting more and more people ratchet, and then you start to bring about the inevitable collapse of the old system, as you should. The good thing about incremental collapsitarianism is it works very well with plain old incrementalism. And those are the two things that actually kind of work. Nothing else really works, because no one gets what they want all in one go, barring a miracle or a once-in-a-lifetime event. And a plain old incrementalism is trying to fix the system bit by bit. And the incremental collapsitarian is trying to destroy that system bit by bit. And both work very well together, because if the incrementalist gets any kind of a gain, gets any kind of a lowered tax, gets any kind of an expanded freedom here, gets any kind of a thing by working in the government, then that just helps everyone out. In the meantime, the incremental collapsitarian starts chipping away at the entirety of the system, and whoever wins, someone wins. And if both of them win, then you start to have a smaller and more impotent and whatever else government that then is easier to chip away with incrementally. Or the incrementalist starts chipping away a little bit and making it a freer and better world by making the government less powerful there, and that's easier to chip at and destroy the institution thereof completely. But more importantly, I think a lot of people have these ideas that they're just going to do a big grand thing and the world's going to be better. But really, you can get rid of everything that's wrong with the world and still have it not be in a good place. You need to build the future. You need to actually create something worth creating, whether that's a better governmental system, which, is not something that I think is very realistic, but whatever, or a better non-governmental system. But whatever it is, you got to build something. And an incrementalist is always building. While you're making government smaller, you're inherently looking out at the things that happen in its place. Whereas you add vouchers or school tax credits or things like that, where people can get out of paying for direct public schools and use some kind of a government-approved private school, charter school, or homeschool, whatever it is, that gets more people living in a less governmental kind of a way. Or, you reduce taxes, and then businesses can flourish, and then more people can get and start a business, and fewer people have to just work for the few big megacorps that are out there. They can actually start their own thing. And just all that gets building going on that side. On the other hand, if you're a collapsitarian, an incremental one, you start poking away and just saying, well, we're not going to use this at all. We're just going to homeschool today. Or we're not going to use that money at all. We're going to use our own kind of money. And then when the system is gone, you haven't just been trying to blow up the system with a big hand grenade. You've been building the alternative. And like a snake shedding its skin, there we go. The new world is revealed. I hope you enjoyed this little fun little rant. Remember, become an incremental collapsitarian. The sooner you do, the better your life is going to be, at least in my opinion. Cheers, guys.